Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be starting a new series. It's going to be a 4-part series on the stages of reunion. It is a lengthy subject, so I did want to divide it up and give you plenty of information on each stage. But before I get started with those stages, I do want to point out that every reunion is different, and you may not go through all of these stages in the sequential order that I talk about them. You may also skip some stages, or you may repeat some stages, and every reunion is different, and it's okay. Everything that I talk about in these stages and in this series is normal and common during reunion. So don't worry if you end up skipping something that I mention or you repeat something, because that is normal as well. So without further ado, let me get into the first stage, which is fantasy. Now I added in fantasy because I think it plays a really important role in adoption reunion. Not a lot of the websites or the books that I was using for research mentioned fantasy. A few did, but not all of them. But I wanted to throw it in here because it is part of reunion, because we both, I think, adoptees and birth parents, we both think about that during, during the times when we're apart. So I think it's an important part. Now, adoptees, regardless of the fact that they may not have any conscious memory of their birth parent or their birth mother or birth father, they will fantasize as well. They will make up, stories in their mind of what they look like and how they are. Common narratives were like fairy godmother, damsel in distress, coming to save the adoptee. That was a big fantasy that a lot of adoptees had shared in what I had read. Another thing that adoptees would mention that they fantasized about was their birth family. Did they have siblings? How many siblings? Brothers, sisters, older, younger, and then holidays as well, like family gatherings, family picnics, and Christmases and birthdays and all different kinds of holidays. They would fantasize about how those would actually be. Now, all of these fantasies for an adoptee is actually referred to as a ghost kingdom. Now, when I was looking up the research, I came across a definition of ghost kingdom, which is basically an alternate place in your psyche. Okay, so it's your own narrative that you conjure up. Now, I did see also that they refer to the birth mother having a ghost kingdom as well, in where she keeps that baby. And honestly, that was only the first time I ever saw it referred to a birth mother as well. I think ghost kingdoms are much more referred to an adoptee's type of narrative, because we as birth mothers, we remember our children and we, remember the baby and everything like that. So it's possible, but I think it's more reserved for adoptees. Anyways, moving on. I also read that adoptees sometimes did not fantasize about reunion because they were afraid of secondary rejection. So instead, they just pushed that idea out of their mind so that they wouldn't have to go through that and deal with that at the present time. Now, moving on to birth mothers, our fantasies about adoption reunion are a little bit different. Because we were older and we weren't babies, we tend to focus more on, how they look like when they grow up and what do they like, do they play sports? Are they healthy? Those types of things. What color hair do they have? Who do they look like? Those things. Another thing that a lot of birth mothers would fantasize about, and I could totally relate to this, is, do the children that we gave up know that they are adopted? And if so, do they hate the birth mother for the relinquishment? So I could totally relate to that too. I did have those thoughts come across my mind in the 28 years prior to me reuniting with my daughter. And then finally, just where do they live? How far away are they from us? Did we ever cross paths? Because they live closer. How was their childhood? Were they raised right? Were they treated okay? That was a big thing for me too. I wanted her to be happy and healthy. I was hoping that she wasn't mistreated. So those are some of the fantasies that birth moms have as well. Now moving on, the second stage of reunion is the actual search. Now, one party is always the party that's searching, and the other party is the one that is found. For me and my daughter, it was kind of happenstance because I wasn't consciously searching. I did my DNA in order to do my DNA, for other purposes. I didn't even realize that doing your DNA was the new way to find your adopted child. And for my daughter, she says she did her DNA so that she can see if there was any other type of nationality, and heritage in her bloodline that she didn't already know about. So one reason why adoptees may not search is because for a fear of secondary abandonment. That was a really big item that was mentioned in a lot of blogs and books that I had read. But also way up there with that was fear of upsetting their parents. Okay, so they would think that, their adoptive parents would be mad or hurt because they were searching and they didn't want to ruffle any feathers because they love them, and that's understandable. So, so that was another thing that they would wait until their adoptive parents passed and then they would do some searching and try to find their birth parents. Then there was also the idea that they might not be able to find them, so why even bother searching? And along that lines too is what if they found a grave on the other side? A lot of adoptees do find graves because their parents have passed and for one reason or another. So that's a tough pill to swallow, that you're excited to find your birth mother, birth father finally, and you find a grave on the other side. Lastly, they are afraid to disturb. So I've heard from a lot of people, my daughter included, that and I'll give you my daughter's example, what she said to me. She said that if I had never reached out to her, she would have never reached out to me for fear of dredging up old wounds that, may not want to be, opened or anything like that. So she was afraid to disturb my life and open old scars and stuff like that. So that's another one that adoptees think about. But on the flip side, birth mothers think like that too. That was one thing that I thought of all the time. When I was young, I said, when she's 18, I'm going to find her no matter what. Well, when she turned 18, I was already 33, and I said to myself, I can't bother her. She's just going to college. She's just, growing up. I don't want to disturb her. Then I said, okay, well, I'll wait till she's 21. But then 21 rolled around and, then, she's just getting out of college and starting a career. I don't want to bother that. So, and this is all in my mind because that's not what happened in her life, but I'm not going to go into that. But, and then 21 rolled around and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, I'll wait till she's like 25 or 26 and she's a little bit more settled down. Well, that rolled around and I was like, no, I'm not going to bother her. She may just be starting a family. I had an excuse for everything. So, that was a big thing. And I said, maybe 20, 27, 28, 29, she'll come find me. And, it's weird because 28, that's when we did end up reuniting. Anyways, moving on. So birth mothers think about that too, that, we're afraid to disturb them and disrupt their life. And I see it all the time in my birth mom groups, that birth moms are saying that, and I tell them the story that I just told you all the time so that they have more encouragement to go and reach out. Birth moms as well are also afraid of rejection. And along with that, many of us feel that we don't have the right to search. Now, this stems from the agencies that were used many years ago. I haven't heard of it common with the younger birth moms in our groups or anything, but all the older birth moms do mention that they were told, myself included, that we would be arrested if we ever went and searched. We were never to go and find them. They were out of our lives and we needed to move on, and that was it. So there's that fear too, that we don't have a right to find them. We can't. Once I got a little bit older, I realized that, well, once she turns 18, I have every right to do anything because she's an adult and nobody can, do anything to me. But in my groups, like a lot of women from like the baby scoop era, they are very scared to go and do a search because they were told that they will be prosecuted and thrown in jail. Lastly, in this stage is absolutely having no support. There's no family or friends or anything that is understanding and willing to be by your side. Now, I didn't have family that was very supportive. They're very distant, and there was nobody really to that I feel comfortable talking to in my family, but I had a really great friend support system through where I was working at the time, and just other friends as well. So I was able to process a lot of stuff and talk things out and everything with friends. But some women just don't have that. And then, they have their children, they have their spouse, but, they can't talk to them. They just feel like they don't have anybody to talk to. So that right there, my friends, is the first part of this series. In the next series, I'm going to be going over stages 3 and 4, which are first contact and first meeting. If you're enjoying this content, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It really helps to push this out to more people. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for the privilege of your time. Bye-bye.